a blessing? I know you are. Yes, welcome everyone. In the morning when I get out of bed, I claim a blessing. I claim a blessing. I claim a blessing. Put your hands together. Before I even lift my head, I claim a blessing. Yeah, I do. I claim a blessing. I claim a blessing. This is how I start my day, knowing good is on the way. Amen. I am claiming perfect health, love and laughter, friends and wealth. In the morning when I get out of bed, I claim a blessing. I claim a blessing. I claim a blessing. Before I even lift my head, I claim a blessing. I claim a blessing. I claim a blessing. In the morning when I get out of bed, I claim a blessing. I claim a blessing. I claim a blessing. Before I even lift my head, I claim a blessing. I claim a blessing. I claim a blessing. Yeah. Come on your feet. I am grateful. Grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we make, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. I am grateful, yeah, grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we make, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. I am grateful, grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we make, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. Come on now. I am grateful, grateful for this day, for the love we share, the life we make, and I give thanks for all the many ways that the love of God appears. Yes, the love of God is here. So it is. Way to go, family. I love it, love it, love it. Woo!
See you. Welcome to Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. I'm David Alexander, spiritual director here. My pronouns are he and his.
Yes,
Thank you very
yes.
much. Thank you. Great to be with you today. We're starting a new series today, Say No to the Status Quo. We look kind of silly up there, but there we are. Reverend Gene and I will be bringing you these messages this month, saying no to the status quo and stepping in to our greater yet to be. So we'll be breaking all that down throughout the month, which means we have a new affirmation. Before we get to that, I just want to welcome everybody watching online or on Facebook. Thank you for tuning in today or in the future, whenever you're tuning in. Be sure to drop a line. Let us know where you're watching from. We have prayer practitioners online that are watching with you and available to you. We have a whole group of people this week that have been at Unity Village in Kansas City for the People of African Descent New Thought Conference. And so we send our blessings to them as they're having a great week and wrapping things up this morning. I looked at the photos and it was more people than I thought from SLCA there. So it's like a good 10 or 12 folks from our community there. So we're grateful that they're having such a good time. And let me see if there's anything else special I need to announce to you. I think that's it. So let's look at the affirmation for today, and then we'll bring up Mally for our announcements. The affirmation for this month is, today I recognize that many things call for my attention, including that which does not serve my deeper intention. Therefore, any agreement I have consciously or unconsciously made with mediocrity are now broken. I say no to the status quo of smallness and not enough. I say yes to next level goodness flowing from me and to me from every direction. Let's take a deep breath. I'm going to say it one line at a time, invite you to repeat after me, and then we'll take another deep breath and we'll say it all together as one. Today I recognize that many things call for my attention.
Today I recognize that many things call for me,
Including that which does not serve my deeper intention. Therefore, any agreement I have consciously or unconsciously made with mediocrity are now broken. I say no to the status quo of smallness and not enough. I say yes to next level goodness flowing from me and to me from every direction. Yeah, take in a deep breath. And now let's really anchor it in together with one voice. Today, I recognize that many things call for my attention, including that which does not serve my deeper intention. Therefore, any agreement I have made or unconsciously made with mediocrity are now broken. I say no to the status quo of smallness and not enough. And I say yes to next level goodness flowing from me and to me from every direction. And so it is. Amen. That's good stuff. Mallory Lapid, our announcements.
Hello, everyone. All my Olympians, gold, silver, or bronze. My name is Mallory Lapid, and I gladly serve here at the SLCA on the Creative Arts team. My pronouns are she and her. I have a couple of announcements. Stand by. We have so many great opportunities to connect, grow, serve, and give at SLCA. For more information about today's announcements and other opportunities, scan the QR code found on your monitor. Many of you have registered and are enjoying daily mindful messages from our New Thought Ministry. Beginning this Tuesday, August 6th, each week we will have 3 opportunities to connect with others for Tune In Tuesday. Head on over to myelectionintention.com to register for the Zoom link. I got that confused with something else, which is why I was holding the phone. Not today, but every other Sunday, we will have visioning. It's vital to the sustainability of SLCA. So next Sunday, the second Sunday, August 11th at 5 p.m. Reverend Jean will lead our community in a vision for SLCA. This will take place every second Sunday, and we would love for you to join in. Let's take a hike. Some of you would like that. On August 24th, Saturday at 9 a.m., you can get to know people in your spiritual community while participating in a light hiking outing. There's such a thing. We will meet at Sweetwater Creek State Park, that's in Lithia Springs, and walk the Red History Trail. Register today on slca.com for more details. As part of our Mindset Reset ministry, we will begin a Tune In Tuesday Zoom call every Tuesday beginning on August 6th. That's this coming week, 2 days. For your convenience, we will offer 3 sessions every Tuesday. For more information and to register, visit that website, myelectionintention.com. As our community grows, we're looking for those willing to volunteer. You know what happens when you volunteer? You end up knowing your community. It's fun. That's how you've gotten to know me, because I volunteer and I'm here. So it works both ways. Please consider donating just one Sunday a month and serve on one of our many SLCA teams. We're specifically looking for those to join our hospitality team, so speak with Shannon after the service to find the perfect way you can serve, or you can see me. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to visiting with you after the service in the social hall for food and fellowship. Remember, you belong.
Thank you, Mel.
Beautiful.
Open your mind, unfold your heart, relax your senses, feel every part. You ain't got a thing to fear. Looks like love is growing here. So take your guard and let it down. Go deeper still until you come unwound. Unbound. Breathe every breath. Release your cringe. Love without waiting, without waiting. Slowly unhinge. You ain't got a thing to fear. Looks like love is growing here. So take your guard and let it down. Go deeper still until you come unwound. Unbound.
Good afternoon. Join me in prayer. Where you are, bring your mind to this moment and know that these are times that call for deepening faith. Faith that the one who is all in all is here, ever present, even in the presence of things that look unholy. This one is the one in whom I have my coming and my going, my health and my strength, my source. And knowing this, it puts me in a place where I can exercise faith and be at peace. Be at peace in the face of no peace. I can do this in the faith that I have, that all is in divine order and that all is well. Knowing this, I just give thanks. I give thanks for so much. We can't count our blessings because even in our forgetfulness, we're blessed. We're blessed when we ask for it, and we're blessed when we don't even know that we need it. Blessings abound. And as such, I know that there is more than enough for all of us to have. I can share, and my intention is to be a blessing. I'm at a stage where I want to be the blessing. I want to be the change in life. I see myself and I know that I have been called to do so. Each one of us has a call, and I encourage everyone to listen for their call and to move on it. There is no one else but you who can do what you have been called for. So we are all needed, we are all belonging here, we're all important, and we're all loved. I give thanks for that. I give thanks for this place, SLCA, CSL, Ministerial School, all of the things that support me on my journey to being a better me. I give thanks for the practitioners, the musicians. I give thanks for our fearless leader, Reverend David Alexander. He has courage, and that is something that I think that he puts out there for us to call upon our own courage to speak up for the truth, to speak up for the downtrodden, to speak up for the voiceless, to speak up when things just aren't right. And I know that these words do not go out and come back void. In fact, they have already been set in motion. And I ask you to join me and to affirm them, and so it is.
You can't stop waiting for love to find you. Look inside your heart. Love's already who you are. So lift up your voice. Let it be heard. Tell me your story, tell it to me. Don't leave out a word. 'Cause I think I have been there too. I'm a seeker just like you. You ain't got a thing to fear. Looks like love is growing here. So take your guard and let it down. Go deeper still until you come unwound. Unbound. Yeah. So it is.
Lighting the flames of faith. A call to service. We perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples, all faiths, all sentient beings come from the one great universal presence which we call Spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here today. We recognize the candle for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We recognize the candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous people, the way of the primal spirituality. We recognize the candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We recognize the candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We recognize the candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We recognize the candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We recognize the candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. We recognize the candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We recognize the candle for all forms of New Thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. As we recognize the healing candle, please put silently in the light the name of anyone you wish. to experience the healing flame of God's eternal love.
All right. Love that ceremony. We do that every month, the first Sunday of the month, to just anchor ourselves in our divine truth. It's time in our service for our offering. We move this up in the service if you haven't been here in a while. And so you can text to give 404-800-9467 on your phone. Scan the QR code. If you have cash or check, we have envelopes for that. And if you are a tither like me, you can drop your tithe card, pick that up on your way in the door, and drop that in the basket as they come by. We have many people who automatically set up to give monthly, and we're grateful for that. And as we prepare to give, we also prepare to receive. And this time we have brought back testimonials so that you can hear the direct impact that your gift is having in people's lives in our community. And today we have a wonderful member who's been around a long time. He's been on the board. He was chair of our 40th anniversary committee, justice issues and the greater community as well. Please welcome Tom Woodward.
Thank you. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And you know, for the last 4 Sundays, when I've sat out there and I've heard different ones of you come up here and give your testimony, I sat there and I thought, what would I say if I had to do this? And I didn't think about it a whole lot. I didn't prepare anything for weeks or anything like that. But sure enough, I got the text from Shannon yesterday afternoon, and I thought about it for a moment. I said, sure, I'd be happy to do that. And so what I decided to talk about was opportunities. You know, throughout my life, I know that I've taken advantage of certain opportunities which seem to come by chance. And I'm talking about from high school through college, into the start of my career, etc. And in every one of those things, I thought how different my life would have been if I had not taken advantage of those chance opportunities. They really did change the direction of my career, etc. So for at least a couple of years before I became a member or started participating in the Atlanta Church of Religious Science at the time, I had a couple of friends who kept saying, oh, you might like this teaching. It's a lot of fun. You learn a lot. It's really good. And I don't know why they thought I would be receptive to that, because I was raised in a very Presbyterian church in a small town with generations of my family involved in the church. We went to church every Sunday, went to Sunday school, went to evening youth fellowship and all of that. Parents were very active. Grandparents, great aunts and uncles, all my cousins were part of that. But over time, I thought there was some hypocrisy in that. And if you put this in context, in the 80s, there was a lot of, from my point of view, negativity coming from church leaders against the LGBT community, against anybody who didn't cotton to a very conservative philosophy about Christianity in particular. So I was pretty much turned off by that and thought I'd never be part of any organized religion, right? So I resisted participating for a couple of times. And finally I said, okay, I'll go. I'll find out what this is all about. So in February of 1989, I came to my first service at the Memorial Arts Center with Reverend Kennedy Schultz, our founder. At that point, he was 10 years into his 20-year service for our center. And, you know, I sat at the back. I listened, I was skeptical, and I thought, is this a cult? What are all these people doing here that come here and fill up this auditorium every Sunday? And yet, when I listened to things, I thought, well, you know, I've kind of always thought that, but I've never heard anybody at a pulpit, standing at a pulpit, say these things. And I went back, not every Sunday, but I went back pretty frequently in the beginning with my friends who always picked me up and took me there to make sure I went. And over time, you know, I started out being skeptical and actually began to hear more things that I agreed with. And I started asking questions about, could these things help me in my life? I thought I was living a pretty successful career 12 years out of college at this point. I didn't think I was unhappy or unsuccessful or anything like that. What I didn't know was how much more successful and happier I could be. So as time went on, I moved closer and closer to the front. I started putting more than $2 or $3 in the offering plate. I started really leaning in, and after 2 or 3 years, I started taking classes. I learned how to do spiritual mind treatment for myself. It was very powerful. And during those classes, which were in the evenings or during the daytime, I shared with other class members their stories of the week and what they had. They were giving me testimonials about what had happened to them in the past week and how they treated for it and so forth. And so I learned as much from my fellow community members as I did from the ministers and the teachers. It was great. Who knew that 35 years later, I would still be here? This is an opportunity that I actually took advantage of that will outlast all the others. And I'm very grateful for that. So yes, I do participate in any way I can. I give money every time I can. And not only that, but I put SLCA in my will. Because I intend for this to be around a lot longer than I am. I want this place to be available, this teaching to be available for any young person, any middle-aged person, anybody late in life who decides they need to take a different direction and want to learn what this is all about. So I'm very grateful for everything I've learned here. Thank you. Join me, if you will, in giving our affirmation for grateful giving at this time. If you've got a pledge card, hold it to your chest or hold it in your heart, next to your heart. And we'll be passing an offering plate around here soon, I think. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow, and all that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly, and so it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors, too late in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. I'm not holding it in anymore. Woo! I'm gonna shout it out loud. I understand here what I'm here for, and what this life is about. It's about love, it's about laughter, it's about comfort and smiles. It's about love, it's about kindness, it's about hearts open wide. It's about love, it's about passion, it's about taking a chance. It's about love, it's about service, it's about lending a hand. Lending a hand. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Yeah. Swing wide the doors, too late in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Well, there's now a voice I've heard for years. I've learned to keep it inside. Well, now it's coming in loud and clear. I need a deeper life. It's about love, it's about laughter, it's about comfort and smiles. It's about love, it's about kindness, it's about hearts open wide. It's about love, it's about passion, it's about taking a chance. It's about love, it's about service, it's about lending a hand. Lending a hand. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors, too late in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Yeah.
All right, all right. Nope, yes. You're following me. Thank you so much. I was going to call for it. So we're grateful to receive these gifts, all the gifts that have come in online, virtually, automatically, set up through auto tithing, and in the room, in all these expressions of love. We're grateful. We receive these now humbly into the heart of this ministry, knowing that they are pressed down, overflowing to fuel the needs of this community, to reach back out into the world and to shine that light. For all of this and more, we're truly grateful and thankful, and so it is. John, thank you. Give a hand to our beautiful ushers, do such a great job for us. Yeah. All right. Let's get going. Say no to the status quo. We're going to have some fun this month. Are you ready? We're going to have some fun with this as we look at examining and unpacking all of the ways to create newness in our life and really boldly declare what it is that we are for, and to kind of, saying no to the status quo is really about fleshing out all of the sort of autopilot programming that is happening in our consciousness that comes from other places that we have yet to examine. What is the status quo anyway? The status quo is defined as the state of what is. The state of what is. So the status quo for anything, for your life, for your finances, for the world, for politics, for this or that, or what, any subject you put in. And so there would be multiple status quos for multiple things, right? Whatever we're talking about. So it's the state of what is at the time, or the context of the time period or setting that we are maybe discussing. And so what strikes me about that definition of the status quo is that, in a lot of writing about it, people say, well, it's the baseline for what is normal. And I would say, well, it's the baseline for what is acceptable, because there's nothing in the definition that says what the status quo normal we tend to presume means healthy, right? That it's the norm is kind of the standard against which we measure, but it's also kind of implies some other things about being helpful or healthy or right in some regard. But the status quo can be the status quo even if it's unhealthy. The status quo can be the status quo even if it's toxic. The status quo can be the status quo even if it's destructive, right? So it's the state of what is, regardless of what that state is. And added to that, it's the state that tends to, the state of being or the state of consciousness, that tends to go unquestioned, because it is the state of what is at that particular time, whether it's healthy or quote-unquote normal or abnormal or productive or non-productive, toxic or not. It tends to go unquestioned because it just gets accepted as, well, that's the way it is. That's just the way it is, right? And so as I started examining this, preparing for this month, looking at status quo of things, I thought, well, what was the status quo of things when New Thought came into being? In the 1800s, late 1800s, when kind of a unique combination of philosophy and religion and science began to, in conversation, emerge in New England primarily, and then spread across the country by the 1930s. What was the status quo that they were speaking to? Because we get asked a lot, I get asked a lot, well, what is New Thought? And the name New Thought is a name that indicates that it came from a push against or a reaction to the status quo of the time, the status quo of religion, the status quo of religious thought or spiritual thinking at that particular time, which was a very, theologically speaking, a very Calvinistic Protestant theology. If you imagine New England in the 1800s. And so it was very superstitious, biblically, and very down-putting to the human beings and to our sense of dignity. It was like, the whole, you understand what I'm talking about, right? It was the whole, you're the worm of the dust kind of thing, right? God's up here and God's worthy, but you're not, and you got to kind of span that gap somehow if you're lucky, and if you, humble yourself enough, and if you, think enough self-depreciating thoughts about yourself and all of that kind of stuff, right? And New Thought came along and said, no. That was the status quo. When New Thought said, no, that's not the way it is. You had transcendentalists and people like Emerson and Thoreau and others who said, God is not just, some mysterious being that we're trying to reach in these, beautiful churches. God's out here in nature. God's in the air that we breathe and in the trees and in the rivers and the streams, and it's closer than we can possibly imagine, and it's wonderful and it's magnificent. And in fact, there's no separation between that thing and ourselves. It's right here. We don't have to go out and get it. We don't have to be worthy of it. It is what it is. And so all of the elements of that which made up the New Thought thinking were all reactions to essentially saying no to the status quo of that time, of God being separate and distant from us, of ourselves being unworthy of love or wholeness, and specifically in terms of medical conditions and the whole mental science of healing at that time. Quimby and his work, and if you don't know these figures, you can look them up, but Phineas Parker's Quimby. We have some wonderful basic New Thought education stuff on newthoughteducation.com that is for free. I talk about some of this stuff in my book. And of course, you got the wonderful World Wide Web to Google stuff and look it up. But Quimby was this guy who came along and was studying Anton Mesmer and mesmerism, and he was really fascinated by that and kind of the mechanical processes of the brain, and in terms of receiving suggestion and the body responding, and that sort of what was that mental science behind that. And he began to relate it and compare it side by side with his study of scriptures and the healings of Jesus. And he said, well, Jesus was this master teacher, seemed to understand consciousness as far as, I can understand what the laws of consciousness are. And similarly, this subconscious suggestion thing that he was studying, he said, well, look at that. In the scriptures, Jesus always asked permission from the individual. Right? Will you be made whole? Are you willing? Is this what you want? Right? In one way or another, in every one of the demonstrations and healings, there was some form of sort of conscious buy-in to the idea of healing. And then this law seemed to automatically respond. And so he used that research and that investigation that he was going through to say, well, this thing that I'm noticing and seeing in mesmerism, perhaps the individual, rather than being consciously put asleep, could actually activate the law of that consciousness within inside of themselves. Perhaps they could affirm their divinity, their wholeness, their well-being, and have the law respond in kind. In 1861, he opened an office in New York, outside of New York, upper state New York, and began seeing people. And by the time he finished, he documented thousands of cases of healing through today what we call affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment, which changed a little bit over the time period, but not much. Right? The basic essence of it comes straight out of Quimby's healing work. And so that, again, was this reaction to the status quo, right? The status quo that said that, well, if you got sick, then you just had to deal with it. And, the penicillin wasn't invented till 1927, or discovered till 1927. So we're talking 1860s, 1870s, 1880s. People were getting sick and dying from all kinds of ailments that today we just, we have vaccines and antibiotics and all kinds of different things for that they didn't have then. And so people were hungry for something else. They were hungry for a way to claim their health and well-being in a way that the medical community was kind of saying, well, we don't know what that is, and we really don't have an answer for that. So you're just going to have to, we can let some blood out. We can do some other weird things that they don't do anymore, right? And Quimby and others came along and said no to the status quo of that idea and said there is a wholeness within inside of you. There's a well-being and a perfection and a divinity within you. And to the degree that you can become mentally convinced that that is the case, then your physical body must respond to the direction of your mental mind such that a demonstration comes through. And people began to take that in. People began to get healed and transformed through that practice. And so our entire faith system really is from the practice of the invitation to saying no to the status quo of mediocrity, saying no to the status quo of not enoughness, to saying no to the status quo of divinity or goodness or wholeness in any regard being in any way outside of who we are. That our practice of faith invites us to come out from among the traditions and the traditional othering of thought into a kind of radical wholeness and oneness. I've shared many times, I got this from Michael Beckwith years ago, and every once in a while it pops in. I know I've done it a few times that people will remember it, but it is my favorite joke, so I'll share it. You know, the guy who went to the fundamentalist church and was sitting in the back for the first time, and like Tom was at years ago, but it was a fire and brimstone kind of church, and the minister got up there, and I'll make it shorter this time because I know you've heard it before, but the minister basically over and over says that, you know, you're all going to hell. You got to be worried about your eternal soul and your eternal salvation. And all of the people kind of clutched their Bibles and shook in fear, and they were so afraid of this minister and his big booming voice. But the one young man sat in the back with a big smile on his face. And the minister couldn't figure it out, so he kept saying it over and over again until finally he pointed it out and he said, "You, young man, don't you understand that every member of this church 20, 30, 50 years from now is going to be dead? You have to be worried about your soul and your salvation. What do you have to say for yourself?" And the young man stood up and he said, "Pastor, I'm not a member of this congregation." Which is to say that he came out from among them, the groupthink, the collective consciousness, the status quo, that we have to think this way about ourselves in relationship to divinity, and said, no, I get to have another thought. I get to have a new thought. I get to have a thought of my divinity and wholeness and hold that and carry that wherever I go, regardless of the circumstances or conditions, and know that that thought will produce a demonstration. Yeah, you can clap for that. It's the essence of our teaching. And so our communities have a unique opportunity to therefore, out of that space, out of that tradition that we stand on, to be radically inclusive and welcoming spaces that swing wide the doors of our hearts and our minds to celebrating that wholeness and that oneness for everyone within our reach. But too often, our communities are in some ways across SLCA is a little bit different, and I'm grateful for that, but New Thought is not always so different from most churches across the country. When whoever it was that said that, 9 and 11 are the most segregated hours in America, come from Dr. King, I think, but we're at 3 o'clock, so there you go. We said no to the status quo of 9 and 11. How about that? But so often we find ourselves in places, including churches, where we tend to see people who look like us or act like us or think like us. And we stay in the realm and in the stream of that status quo and that kind of group thinking. But if we truly believe in oneness, spoiler alert, we do, right? Then we must begin to include ideas and topics and spaces and make room in our consciousness for things that historically would fall outside of what we might consider normal or what we might consider acceptable or what we might consider the status quo. You following what I'm saying so far? Yeah, good. Let me see. Oh, that's the affirmation. We already did that. All right. So the New Thought movement was born as a way of saying no to the status quo of the religious dogma and superstition of the day. We already established that. And so we are here to set a bigger table. I say in my book, Freedom from Discord, if the table is inclusion, then the meal is liberation. If the table is inclusion, I'll say it again, because that line will preach right there. That'll preach all day long. Page 127 from my new favorite book. If the table is inclusion, then the meal is liberation. And the proper recognition to the sources of all of the elements on the table, all the elements of the meal, must be given proper honor. There is room at our table for the mystic who wishes to only turn within and know the divine truth with such depth and conviction that it cannot be denied. There is room at our table for the activist, compelled by their vision to move their feet and make real their values. There is room at our table for the prophet who, in speaking truth to power, knows how to affirm our possibilities while calling out those who violate the human dignity and worth of any of our siblings. There is room at our table for the conscious activist who skillfully blends the art of affirmative prayer with political organizing and prophetic vision, casting calls to all at the table to do their work. There is room at our table for the hungry and the well-fed. There is room at our table for the brokenhearted and the blissed out. There is room at our table for praise and honor to all of the sources of inspiration of new thought that extend beyond simply 20th century white men. The table that we set can and must honor African and indigenous spirituality as sources of our ancient wisdom while inviting new voices to the table. If the table is inclusion, then the meal is liberation. This has been at the heart of the New Thought movement from the very beginning. This idea that you're invited to the table and there is something within you that wants to break free. There's something within you that wants to express. There's something within you that wants to come out and make itself known as your life through your creative intelligence, through your divine spark, through your talents and contributions to the world. It wants to show up in your relationships. It wants to show up in your finances. It wants to show up in your body temple. It wants to know itself, spirit, that which is beyond all conditions and circumstances, that which is beyond all labels, that which is beyond all conditioning, wants to show up in this condition and in this circumstance and in this body and in this realm and in this space and in this political season and in this atmosphere and in this physical world and in the trees and the oxygen and the oil in the ground and everything else in this embodiment on earth as it already is in heaven. It wants to know itself in, through, and as you. But you have to develop the skill set to say no to the status quo of mediocrity, to say no to the status quo of not enoughness, to say no to the status quo of smallness and being separate from your good, from the trance of scarcity that runs through our media, because the media, right? But it's simply human beings paying attention to how consciousness works. You and I are human beings in this room trying to learn and study and understand how consciousness works. Yes? Yes. No different than anybody that we would quote unquote other and call the media or the system or the this or the that. And I don't want to focus on any of those titles. And those involved, there are systems that understand how advertising works. They understand how creating desire and want and using sex appeal and using fear and using all of those things. All of those things are simply laws of consciousness. They're how the laws of consciousness work. And so they're in the business of that field, and they're in the business of that field making money, and they've figured out how to pull the levers and push the things in a certain way to produce the greatest profit. That's all it is. And we can call them evil or we can do whatever, but what I'm suggesting here is that that's not very helpful. What's more helpful is to understand that that's just the laws of consciousness being played out. You and I have the opportunity to understand that from a consciousness point of view and say, I have to develop the skill set to say no to the status quo of all of that behavior and stand aside and stand separate and come out from among that, even if I consume technology and media and all of those things, to know when I'm being played, to know when something comes across. I just laugh. I go through my phone and I'm just like, oh, that's so cute that they think I might even like that, you know, or, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, they clearly saw what I bought on Amazon last week. Okay, that's fantastic, you know. But to understand that there's something within you that is bigger than all of those things. Ernest Holmes says in A New Design for Living, he says, in mind, there is no time, no space, no place. There is only wholeness, oneness, and eternity. In mind, there is no time, no space, no place. There is only wholeness, oneness, and eternity. In our thoughts, there's only that wholeness. In our consciousness, at the root of it, there's only that wholeness. It is the rest of our thinking and conditioning that places that which is eternal into all of these temporal boxes, into all of these temporal things called this and that and them and us and that over there and all of that other stuff. But because of this fundamental belief in oneness of all, the science of mind, the philosophy that we practice here, challenges us and challenges the tendency that we have as human beings to other. To other. To other means simply to compartmentalize and to categorize that which is not in the stream of our own status quo as being something different than ourselves, right? And it's not bad. It's just simply the way that consciousness works, right? If I shop at Kroger, then Publix is the other, because I drive right past it to get to my Kroger. You understand? Yeah. And vice versa, right? And so the other is simply that which is outside of what is my status quo for my own life. But sometimes we make those things that we have named the other as our enemies. Sometimes we make those things that we've named the other as the problem with all of our own unresolved inadequacies and fears and shame and guilt and whatever struggle that we're having about stepping into our own greatness, and we say, well, it's the fault of it is this other over here, right? No, it's just the other. It's just a part of the one that you don't know, that you haven't sat down to get to know, right? And maybe you don't care to know, but it's just the one. But we all other, right? We all other others. And the other is really just, I've been watching this phenomena unfold in the last week or so with the Olympics. It's been fascinating. Have you been enjoying the Olympics? Yes. And it's been a fascinating, not just of athleticism and the countries and the stories and the record breaking and all of that other thing, but it's also the reflection of consciousness through some of these things. I watch kind of everything through my New Thought lens, and so sitting down with me watching something can be very entertaining because I'm just start laughing about reflections of consciousness that I'm seeing. And there's been a lot of othering going on. Right? A lot of people that got offended at an opening ceremonies because they thought a particular scene depicted something that offended their Christianity and the Last Supper, and it had nothing to do with that. And right, but when that which you don't understand is the other, then it's easy to criticize that. It's easy to make it the enemy. It's easy to say, well, I don't like that. Right? I mean, to the point of people were making comments on, like, well, I'm not watching because they did that. And it's like, well, this is not an airplane. You don't need to announce your departure. I mean, you could just, there's no reason to type that anywhere. You could just not watch. It's okay. Other things to watch, that's fine, right? But what's fascinating about that is, and then there have been other stories, most significantly, I think, in this last week, the women's boxing match and the Algerian woman who exists like many athletes on the outside of the bell curve, genetically. She was born female, but she has a XY chromosome makeup, which we typically associate with maleness, but she was born female. But and she won her match very quickly. The Italian woman got hit in a particular way in the face that caused a lot of pain, and so she forfeited the rest of the match, and people just blew up. I mean, social media is winning the gold medal in jumping to conclusions. we're leading the way. And so there was all the conclusions to jump to, and it became this transphobic, anti, men and women's sports thing, which had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. And the truth of the matter is that genetic variation exists in the human condition because there's a bell curve, right? And there's this end of the bell curve that's very small, and there's this end of the bell curve that's very small, and there's you and I that are in the 98% right here in the middle. And the Olympics themselves are a celebration of those that are on the outside of the bell curve, right? Michael Phelps, right? Greatest swimmer in the world. His muscles don't produce a certain amount of lactic acid that yours and I do when we get tired, when we exercise, that cause the muscles to break down and have that kind of heavy, tired feeling. Genetically, he's superior in that way. Huh. Should he give all his medals back because he's genetically superior? Right? This Algerian woman, boxer. What's that? Exactly. And nobody said anything. And so we have more and more, right? So the Olympics is literally a celebration of that which exists in outside of the bell curve. It's what we're celebrating, right? And we're celebrating their athletic achievement through all of that. So what do I say that? I say that because we tend to other. We can't really stop our consciousness from doing that, but we can become more conscious of it and question it when it happens. And invite ourselves, as New Thought does, to come back to that sense of oneness, come back to that sense of wholeness, come back to that sense of, in mind, there is no place or space, there's only the eternal, there's only wholeness, and therefore I am one with this part of myself that I have not yet met. This part of humanity that I have yet to experience. I don't know anybody else like this individual. Isn't that beautiful? I'm meeting this person for the first time. And it is bringing to my mind a whole new appreciation for the diversity of genetics and the human condition and perseverance and stories of triumph and all of these different things that I would not have spent the time thinking about if I hadn't met this person through this story and through this athletic event or whatever it might be, right? Ada Palmer says, it doesn't take a declaration or an invasion to start war. It takes an us and a them and a spark. It takes an us and a them and a spark. And we've got a lot of that going on in our politics and have been for a long, long time, which is why we're providing as a salve in the midst of that, the Election Intention Project, which I'm happy to announce that 2,748-ish people. I forgot my phone. Can you hand me my phone down there? Because I have to read you one little thing when I get to the end. Thank you so much. It's just fun. And we're receiving calls. Who's that? That's not me. Who's that? That sounds like coming through the speakers. Okay. All right, let's wrap this up, and then I want to share something with you about that. But so we're offering that as a salve, as a way of remembering and anchoring ourselves every day. If you don't know what it is, check out myelectionintention.com. It's a daily voicemail. Some people still asking, where's the text? It's a daily voicemail. If you miss it, you can call the number back and hear it directly. If it goes to your answering, it will leave the message, but for a lot of reasons, cell carrier reasons, the messages are longer than what your voicemail will handle sometimes. So you can always call the number back, and we post all the previous messages on the website as well. And thousands of people now participating in this. They're sending in messages to us every day, how much it's helping them, how much they appreciate it, how much it's moving them, how much it's inspiring them, and many, many different diverse voices, over 40 different voices that are delivering the messages throughout the 100 days between now and the election, about 90 days left now, a little bit more than that. And so it's a practice to say, in the midst of this othering, in the midst of consciousness and humanity doing what it does, let's bring ourselves back. Step out of the status quo of what the media or other forces want us to be divided, want us to be in anxiety, want us to be in fear, want us to be in questioning, want us to be attacking another person or group of people. And let's step back and remember, step out of the status quo and remember our wholeness. Remember our oneness, remember our connection. And then from that place, engage and make a difference. Engage in expressing our values. Engage in all of these things. Overcoming otherness requires empathy and awareness and a willingness to challenge and question our own biases, our own beliefs. But most of all, it requires curiosity. It requires curiosity. And so as we explore what's beneath our resistance to our own personal growth and our challenges, more and more we step into that wholeness. More and more we step into our greatness. More and more we step into a greater availability of good that is always present for us. Always present. And it always has been. But you got to step out of the stream that wants you to think something else. Are you following what I'm saying? Yes. And so people are calling in. People are still joining the program. If you want to know how to do that, see me. Or you text the word join to, I've written it so many times, to 470-784-0250. And sometimes people, they write in long, lengthy things. You text just the word join. But some people... Some people have written narrations of, I heard about this from such, and I happen to know Michael Beckwith since I was a baby, and, whatever. And they give me these stories. It's hysterical. And so therefore, please add me to the, and I'm like, no, just text the word join, because the automatic system can't read all of that. It only is looking for the word join by itself and whatever. But I see them, and then I manually add them. But this is one that came this morning. It says, I would like to receive the smooth sailing upliftment messages through this time to the election. Thank you. And it just tickled my heart, this smooth sailing uplifting messages. I was like, I don't know if they were voice texting it and it just mistranslated. I really hope that their intention was to say smooth sailing uplifting messages, that's what they wanted from area code 949, which I think is Orange County. Because I just thought that was really entertaining and beautiful. So I'm saving that one in my little personal archives. All right, let me invite the practitioners to come forward so we can pray. And then we've got a little bit more special things for you today. Take a deep breath. We're going to spend all month looking at this idea of how to step out of the stream of status quo thinking, traditional thinking, and to step into newness, to step into boldness, to step into health and wholeness, to step into prosperity, to step into that which in any way, either by default programming or conditioning, you have thought, consciously or unconsciously, that it has been out of reach for you. Success or relationship or status of health or condition in our country or in our world or in our city. Things that you've thought, no, that's out of reach. That's not the norm. That's not the status quo. We're going to learn this month how to get there, how to break the chains of mediocrity and the affliction of not enoughness, and step in to possibility, to call it in, to cultivate it, to make space for it. And so in this moment, I give thanks for our prayer practitioners who are always available by appointment. You can go to our website and make individual appointments with them. They're available for prayer after the service as well. They're available online. Those of you watching online, if you have a prayer request, you can write it in the chat right now. Prayer practitioners will hold that sacred. And we know that we have requests that have come in this week. We pray today for the health and the well-being, physical vitality of our beloved Reverend Jean as she is home today recovering. We know that the Spirit of God is moving through every cell of her body and uplifting her into a dynamic wholeness that her body only knows, wholeness at every level. And that which is out of order is finding itself in order. That which is in disorder is being restored to its dynamic right place of health and vitality, even as we speak this word. And we know for our beloved friends, practitioner Catherine and her daughter Azura, who was involved in a car accident, we know that her too, Azura's body, temple, is a dynamic place where the wholeness of God lives, where the perfection of God lives, and that the doctors and the nurses know exactly what to do to restore wholeness, to bring health and balance, and to bring forward that which is seemingly not present, that which has been absent, that which has been disturbed by conditions on the surface level. But behind it all, we know that there's a dynamic wholeness that is coming forward. And there is peace in the heart and the mind of Catherine and Doug as they navigate this journey. Oh, there's wholeness for our national election process. There's a divine right order that is taking place for our country. We are participating in it willingly and enthusiastically to let go of the fear and to tune into the vision of what we want. And to all the prayer requests that have come in online, any words that I have missed or left out, I know that they are included in this moment because Spirit knows what's on our heart for the silent prayer that you carried into this room. Yeah, that one too. We hear it. We receive it. We hold it as sacred. That there's a divine intention at the center of your being, and that divine intention is to be all that you have come here to be, in health and wealth, in wholeness, in dynamic vibration and vitality. And so we declare that it is so. We declare that it is unfolding and revealing itself moment by moment, breath by breath, step by step, day by day. We give conscious permission. Will thou be made whole? Yes. I say yes to my greater good. I say yes to dynamic wholeness flowing to me and through me from every direction. In this moment and every moment forward. For this and so much more, I'm truly grateful and thankful. I bless these words. I know that they reach every name, spoken and unspoken, and they continue to reverberate back as the dynamic of our experience. Thank you, God. If you're in agreement with me, let's affirm together. And so it is. So it is. Peace and blessings. All right. Thank you to our practitioners. Once again, they're available for prayer after this service. Haniel, you've got some big, exciting stuff coming up. Penelope, I know you introduced him when he first came to us. Introduce him again, and let's hear from him. Oh, yeah. You're going to make him do it. All right.
Haniel is Israeli-American, and he arrived here at the age of 12. And he was just sharing with me earlier. And there's so many things to say about Haniel. His spirit is so lovely, isn't it?
Yes. And
you've just seen him. So to be with him and his brother, he has a twin brother. His name is Eden. And Eden and he have a gig this afternoon, actually. Yeah. And it's been such a delight to be with him. And I'm saying it was, and it will continue to be, but currently he and his brother are traveling to New York City to go to school at Queens College. Yep, that's your alma mater. So talk to Ellen. She can put you in touch with the board of directors, I'm sure. But Haniel, his spirit has been groomed in strong part, by his mother, Sarah. And his spirit is just so lovely. You're so talented. And I'm sure the jazz world in New York City is going to receive him with open arms. Don't you know that?
I just want to say thank you to the whole community here. I mean, you basically explained everything. But I come from a background, whatever opinion you have about, Israel right now, this center has been really encouraging just in the practice of non-dualism and looking at things at both sides without too much judgment. And I'm just thank you so much for everybody this past year being here. Just continue the affirmations and the peace. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, listen. We love you, we appreciate you, and we want to make sure that you hit the road with some cash in your pocket, with some money. So we're going to just pass the baskets again. If you've got a little extra $5 or 10 or 20, if you're digital like me, I understand he does Cash App and Venmo and all those things, so I'm going to get with him right after the service. If you're watching online and you want to participate, just donate again through our website and just write Haniel or Queens, New York, or whatever you want. We'll see the memo, we'll know what it's for, and get that directed to him. But we know about road trips, and we want to make sure when he stops at Buc-ee's, he can fill up and amen, somebody, and have a little cash in your pocket. New York City is expensive, so let's bless this man and his brother and all the wonderful ways in which you have blessed us. We're so grateful. You're always connected to us. We've got some great New Thought communities in New York as well. I'll be sure to turn you on to those and all of that. So let's pass the baskets again. Did I miss anything? No? Good. Okay, let's do that. And I think that's it. Let's do that. We bless you. We love you. Extend your hands. If you've already, don't do it if you're putting money in the basket. Do that first. But if you've already done that or you're doing it online, just extend your hands to Haniel as we surround him in love and in safety. We know that the road trip goes beautifully, and this is a wonderful time in his life and in his unfoldment and in everything that is occurring, that everything unfolds with such a divine right order that it brings joy and enthusiasm and new opportunities. And we see them already. We see the doors opening. We see the phone ringing, the emails coming in, the connections taking place. All of the things that are sparked from this divine, sacred yes that he's following in his heart and that is opening up in the universe for possibility. And that will always be connected here at SLCA in Atlanta. And we welcome him back anytime and always as family, now and forever. And so it is. So thank you so much for your blessings, and thank you. All right, sing out.
Let's close out up on our feet. We envision a world that works for everyone and for all of creation. We see all people, all beings as expressions of God. We see a world that works for everyone. Yeah, we do. We envision a world that works for everyone and for all of creation. We see all people, all beings as expressions of God. We see a world that works for everyone. We envision a world that works for everyone and for all of creation. We see all people, all beings as expressions